College of Business sponsors this outstanding speaker series to enhance awareness of key issues in our economy and innovative strategies for successful leadership in business. The University of Tampa is growing in prominence and excellence as its Sykes College of Business. On behalf of the president of the university, Dr. Ronald Vaughn and Mrs. Renee Vaughn, who are with us, we welcome the many students, especially our Business 101 students, faculty and friends of the University of Tampa who are here with us, including Provost David Stern and Mrs. Allison Stern, and Mr. Furman, who's going to be joining us later on, who is a trustee and former speaker at the Sykes Hall of Fame. We're proud to have as our media partner DCE Productions. DCE Productions is videotaping and producing this special Sykes Hall of Fame Business Speakers event. The video will be available to watch on our website, and a link will be sent out with the video as well to many people around the country. Tonight's presentation, Passion, a Key to Entrepreneurial Success, gives a close-up view of two energetic local entrepreneurs and innovative leaders with a passion to transform business in this globally competitive world. Today, we're delighted to have with us Gerald "Jerry" Divers, the founder of the Bank of Tampa, and Gregory Celestan, the Chief Executive Officer of Celestar Corporation. Let me tell you a little bit about the speakers. Jerry Divers grew up in Clearwater, graduated from the University of Florida with a major in banking and finance, and after serving in the Navy on active duty for 4 years, joined the Exchange National Bank of Tampa as a management trainee in 1961. In 1993, the bank in Tampa he served as president was sold, and he was not comfortable with the operation of the buying bank. He arranged the purchase of a small independent bank in Tampa, selected the board, found buyers, and the Bank of Tampa came into being in 1994. With a focus of building personal relationships with professionals and business owners, it has become by far the largest community bank in the Bay Area and the 10th largest Florida chartered bank. Over the years, he's been active in civic and social affairs and in his church. He serves on the UT Board of Trustees. Gregory Celestan is the Chief Executive Officer of Celestar Corporation, a defense consulting company specializing in intelligence support. Celestan started his company in Tampa after serving 20 years in the U.S. Army. Following deployments around the world, including places like Belarus, Germany, and Western Africa, he landed in Tampa providing intelligence support out of U.S. Central Command at MacDill Air Force Base. Celestan supported intelligence operations during the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, including the hunt for Osama bin Laden. In the months before Celestan retired as a lieutenant colonel from the U.S. Army in 2004, he took business courses and started building what would become lifelong community connections. He launched his company with a credit card and a dream. Celestan has received numerous awards and recognitions for his achievements, including the prestigious Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year Award in Florida. He was also elected to the Tampa Bay Business Hall of Fame. Celestan's community commitments include serving on the boards of the Bank of Tampa and the Tampa General Hospital. In a few moments, you'll meet Jerry Divers and Gregory Celestan. First, we're going to share with you a brief video introducing our guests of honor.
A graduate of West Point with more than 20 years in the service, Gregory Celestan was clearly educated as a warrior. But when he wanted to turn his intelligence experience into a business, the Small Business Administration's free courses were a godsend. With no capital, Greg began Celestar Corporation in his Tampa home. Even though he knew he could offer intelligence services more efficiently than the bureaucratic system he'd seen, he needed a break from a competitor to really get started. Lockheed Martin gave it to him with his first subcontract, followed by more subcontracts, and within 1 year, he was dealing directly with the government. As he now expands from intelligence services into operations, planning support, and training, Greg sees tremendous potential ahead.
As mentioned in the program, you can tweet any questions you have during the night to hashtag Sykes Hall of Fame 22. Listed down there, so make sure you have hashtag Sykes HOF 22 for any questions. There'll be time at the end for our speakers to answer a few of your questions. Now it's my pleasure to introduce to the stage moderator Dr. Britt Shirley, Professor of Information and Technology Management here at the University of Tampa, and Gerald Jerry Divers, the founder of the Bank of Tampa, and Gregory Celestan, the Chief Executive Officer of Celestar Corporation. Please come to the stage.
First of all, I want to thank both of you for being here tonight. Welcome to campus. And I'd also like to welcome those of you who are visiting from outside, which would be the business community, I guess. I also want to welcome all of my faculty and staff colleagues, as well as the students who are here tonight. So what I'm going to do is ask 16 questions to both of our guests tonight, and they're going to give us their answers. But after I ask my questions, we're going to allow you to ask questions. So go ahead and shoot those questions in. You can see the hashtag there, hashtag Sykes HOF 22. So any questions you ask could end up here, but just make sure you keep it clean. So I'm going to start off with the first question for you, Mr. Divers. And the first question is, both of you are entrepreneurs who have built highly successful businesses. Could each of you take a couple of minutes and share what you think have been the keys to your success?
So I have 2 minutes?
I have no clock. I'm not looking at my watch.
As I thought about that question, he shared the questions with us yesterday. I thought, I'm not an entrepreneur, I'm more of a plotter. But as I thought about the success of the Bank of Tampa, when I started in Florida in banking, there were no out-of-state banks. There were no holding companies. There were no branches. And of course, no computers. Each bank was its own family and had its own clientele that they felt connected with. As banking has been transformed, it's become more product-oriented, more deal-oriented. It's how much we make each quarter. And I guess because I learned the other way, I've thought there's a place in the market that focuses on building relationships. The people who like relationships the most want somebody they can call if something comes up, something goes wrong, I need some help. I need to have them know me when I call. People who own and manage their own businesses and professionals. So our bank focuses its attention on people who own and manage their own businesses in this area and on doctors, lawyers, accountants, you name it, all the professional folks. In order to do that, you've got to have the employees who love doing what they do every day, because in a service business, it's all about your employees. So I've told the board, and I'm honored that Greg is on our board, we need to put the employees first, and we do that. We want to make sure that they're appreciated, they're respected, we hear their opinions, we want to know what they think, because if we do that effectively, and I guess you're never as good at that as you want to be, they'll take better care of the customers. If you've got an environment and a culture where people enjoy what they do and enjoy helping people, the customers will come. Mm-hmm. If you take care of the customers, you'll make the profit. Mm-hmm. So the success of the Bank of Tampa has been employees first, customers second, mm-hmm. profit third.
And that's one of the things I've learned as being a customer over the years. When you go to a company, you can tell which companies have good cultures and which ones have toxic cultures. Because in an organization that has a toxic culture, you're going to be treated badly as a customer, more than likely. I've never understood how a CEO can think that they can treat their employees badly and then expect the employees to treat the customers
Exactly.
well. It's just not going to happen. Thank you. Mr. Celestan.
Well, you know, I hate following Jerry. When we sit in board meetings, I'm always enthralled listening to him because, you know, the stories and his history is just fascinating for someone who didn't come from the business community. So my take on this is a little bit different because I was in the military for 20 years, went to West Point, and when I came out of the military, I knew I wanted to be a business person. I knew I wanted to start a business, but I didn't have a background in business. But what I did have is a good background in working with people, and it kind of dovetails with what Jerry's talking about. I think one of the things about being an entrepreneur is you have to enjoy working with people. You have to enjoy problem solving and being with people and helping them get to their goals. And that's really part of the success of our company has been the people who have been in the company, who have left the company. They've come back. We've had people who've left and come back. But one of the things that they've said is they felt that they were wanted, they were valued. I had a mentor once who taught me that people don't care how much you know till they know how much you care. And it's so true when you have a business and you have people who are depending on you for their livelihood, how important that is. So I'll tell you that's kind of really the first part of being an entrepreneur is if you don't like dealing with people, and I've met a lot of people who are very technically oriented, and there's nothing wrong with that, but at the end of the day, you have to be able to deal with people who are your customers, people who are your employees, people who are a part of your environment. And that's kind of a key to your success you'll learn pretty quickly.
Thank you. For the second question, I'm going to try to get you to boil down something that probably is difficult to boil down because I know there are a lot of factors that affect whether or not someone's going to be a successful entrepreneur. But if you had to identify three, what would you say are the three most important qualities of a successful entrepreneur? And I'm going to start with you this time, Mr. Celestan.
Oh, wow. Okay, see, I can't follow
Yeah, no
you.
time to catch your
Tough.
breath.
Okay. No, three things. I mean, one of the things I would say that is very important is persistence. You're going to face a lot of problems. And I always tell people that if you're not used to failing, you don't want to get into business because you're going to fail and you're going to make mistakes. And believe me, I have a chapter I can tell you about how many mistakes I've made. And the persistence part is important too. When I was born in Niagara Falls, New York. If you've ever been there, there's a reason it's the honeymoon capital of the world because once you've basically seen the falls, there's nothing left to do but go back to your hotel room. So there's no distractions. It's cold. It's miserable. You want to get out of there. I wanted to get out of Niagara Falls, New York. But I wanted to go to college. I wanted to see the world. I wanted to go to the military. So for me, West Point was a way to get there. There was one thing that was a problem. I loved military history. I was horrible at math. And West Point was an engineering school. So I had to do differential equations, calculus, you know where this is going. I learned to deal with failure pretty quickly. But that was the way to get to where I wanted to go. I had to do that. And you're going to deal with that in the business world too. There are things that you want to achieve, but unless you're willing to, pay the price and be humble too. You're going to have to be humble as part of that because it's tough admitting that you don't know everything. And pretty much your employees will let you know that pretty quickly. So, persistence, be humble. And again, it goes back to that thing I talked about, the first thing about enjoying being with people. I know one of the questions we had later, I don't want to get into, we talk about diversity and inclusion, but you'll know that when you have a business, you're going to deal with a diverse group of people with different backgrounds, and they're going to come to you different cultures, and you're going to have to learn to deal with their issues too, and how you can help your company, how you can help them deal with their things too. You learn that the world isn't black and white, it's shades of gray, and a good entrepreneur and a business person can work through those things.
Okay, very good. Mr. Divers.
I want to tell the students a little story so you'll know how I got to those three factors. Working in a bank all these years, people have said, have you enjoyed your banking experience? And I've said, and this is true, the fascinating thing about being in the same city for as long as I have been is the opportunity, and bankers know their customers or should, the opportunity to know people over a long period of time, see the decisions they've made, the reaction to the decisions, because some of the decisions are not very good, and see how they react and respond. And along the way, I've observed the businesses that have been the most successful. And as I thought about this, and I couldn't agree with Greg more, but I would start with integrity. I think every successful business person I've known has been an honorable, trustworthy person. And I've known a lot of folks who weren't, and over a long period of time, they weren't successful. So I'd put integrity first. I'd say passion is second, and it's a different way of saying what Greg said. People who really believe in what they're doing and are willing to give it their all, just constantly thinking, how can I get this business where I want it? And be able, as Greg said, when things don't go right, pick yourself up and go again. So I would say certainly integrity, passion, and I guess the third one's connected to the second, willing to work as long as it takes to get the job done. If it's 14 hours a day, the successful business people I have known are the people who never stop thinking about their business. Now, lots of folks wouldn't want to do that, but the people who have done it and are successful have integrity, they're passionate about their business, and they're willing to do what it takes to make it successful.
Mm-hmm. And one thing, and this is something that you and I discussed before this, one thing I'd add to that is you've got to be willing to take risks and deal with uncertainty. Yep. And that's the reason I never became an entrepreneur. I like certainty in my life. I don't like to take too many risks. But of course, you've both had to take risks throughout your careers. And that's something that I admire and I wish I could do. Next question I'm going to ask. How important do you think it is to have a mentor or an advisor in business? And I'll start with you with this, Mr. Divers.
As I saw that question, the next question is something about, did you have one? And I didn't. But I think it's so important in a business to have someone who is there for you when you're just beginning and learning, somebody who cares about you, somebody who can answer your questions. And when you think about it, it's better for the business because it prepares them much faster to be better at what they do. So I think mentorship is really important for business.
Okay. Well, since you never had a mentor, I'm not going to ask you question number 4. Okay? So I'm going to do a combination now and ask you the same question, Mr. Celestan. But also, if you could, go ahead and tell us about your mentor, because I know you've already mentioned some advice the mentor gave you.
Yeah, I mean, I've been fortunate, and I count Jerry as one of my mentors too, because I get to watch him in action. And I've had a number of mentors. It really is important because you never stop learning. Even at this stage, I learn something new every day. In the audience, I have my first business coach, Debbie Lundberg, is there. I had a business coach. I had people who I just watched and admired. I know Mr. Furman. I'd gone to him many times with advice. And I had people throughout my military career. But here's the funny thing. We always think of mentors as someone who's up on a mountain, Mount Olympus, who we're going to for wisdom and guidance. But I found that my peers, my wife, has given me a lot of great guidance and advice that has helped me struggle when I hit problems and things that I wasn't sure about which way to go. And so I think you'll find, too, that we always look for that formal mentor, but even your peers, your friends, your classmates can give you, because they all have different experiences. So I think mentorship is a little bit more than the formal thing we think of. It's also the day-to-day interaction that you have with the people around you that'll help you become a better person and definitely a better entrepreneur, because again, there's so much you don't know in this world.
And because I didn't ask you question number 4, I'm going to start with you on question 5, okay?
I guess they thought I was just a dumb kid from Clearwater and they didn't want to waste their time.
Maybe, but then again, maybe you were too good for them. That's another way to look at it. So what is the biggest challenge that you faced in business, and how did you deal with that challenge?
Am I going first?
You're going first this time, because I skipped you on question 4, remember?
This is an interesting story, and it tells you how the Bank of Tampa got there. When I was 44, I was privileged to be asked to be the president of a bank. And it was the third largest bank, distant third, but the third largest bank in Tampa. They'd had 3 presidents in 5 years. They were part of a statewide holding company, but that company had 28 banks, and they let every bank run on its own, which I thought was intriguing and, of course, isn't done anymore that way. I thought long and hard about it because I liked the job I had, but I thought, this would be a growing experience for me. I ought to try to do it. I've never done anything that I enjoyed more than helping that bank get turned around, getting the morale back the way it should be. We had just finished one of our recessions that we seem to have every 15 years, and the bank was coming out of that, so anybody who would have taken the job would have looked good. But the bank did well. I was happy, thought I'd retire there. And on a Saturday morning after I'd been there almost 5 years, the chairman of the board called from Miami and said, "Jerry, we decided to sell the company this morning. The bank that bought our bank was run by an attorney who was a great deal maker, but he came to see me and he talked about, we're going to sell products and think of the deals that we can do. We're going to be big and important, and well, we're going to be so different." And I thought, that's not what I want to do, back to people first, building relationships. But I thought, what will I do? And I thought, talk about a challenge. I had a couple of job offers, but they were with larger banks, and back to how much will we do each quarter and what do we report to the shareholders? One Sunday night, I prayed deep prayers about what I should do. Haven't done that like that, I guess, since. I got no answer. The next morning, Dwight Darby, who was a longtime accountant in Tampa, who I knew because his grandson played football with my son, and we stood on the sidelines and kibitzed. Dwight called me, "Jerry, the independent bank is for sale. Do you know of anybody who wants to buy a bank?" I said, "Can I come over to your office?" On the back of an envelope, we figured out what a fair price would be for the buyers and the sellers of a little $50 million bank at the corner of Martin Luther King and Armenia. Dwight knew people who owned about 45% of the stock, so he called them, "Would you accept," I think it was $30 a share, and they agreed. He says, "It's too bad you don't know Mario Ivoroni, because his friends own 25% of the bank." And I said, "Dwight, I made him the loan to buy the Tropic Steakhouse on Dale Mabry." I said, "He loves me." So I called him. He was there in 15 minutes. By 11 o'clock that morning, we had 76% of the stock of that little bank pledged. Nothing in writing. I didn't have any money. Bankers know people who do, but they don't have it themselves. And no board, of course. So over the next couple of months, I tried to figure out who in the community would have the character, the success in business, and done their civic work as well. We put a nice little board together. I went out and hustled the stock, and part of the deal was, if you buy stock, you need to bank with us. And that, as soon as we started, we changed the name of the independent bank to the Bank of Tampa. That was the name of the first bank here. We wanted to be Tampa's hometown bank. So the challenge, of course, was my job was sold out from under me. What do I do? And that's
a great way to deal with the challenge.
Yeah. The story there is that doors will close. This is to the students. Doors will close in your life that you don't want closed, but other doors will open that you didn't expect, and it'll be up to you to walk through that door.
And that's great advice. Mr. Celestan.
It's hard to follow him all the time, but my story is my second year of business. As you heard, I started the company. I didn't have, like Jerry, didn't have a lot of money. I was coming out of the military, and so I used credit cards and got the company started. I had a few employees. I was one of the employees. So I was in my second year of business, and I had this opportunity for a contract the government was offering to me, but I had to hire 30 employees. I did not have the cash to hire 30 employees. I went to the bank, and of course, we didn't have 3 years of tax returns. These are the little fine print you'll learn that you probably already know in business school. I did not go to business school. I didn't know that. And so I had to use my house as a collateral. Still wasn't enough. So, scraping together the money to hire these 30 employees and trying to figure it out. But I really wanted this contract bad. And then the second shoe dropped. I had to fly up to Washington and meet with some of the government officials because they wanted to make sure that we could do this work. And so I took one of my employees. We go into this meeting, and they asked a number of questions. And they said, "Well, Mr. Celestan, you have to get a surety bond." And I was like, "Yes, of course." And we walk out of the meeting, and my employee said, "What's a surety bond?" I said, "I have no idea." And I went home and I Googled it, and I was like, "Oh my God, are we going to be able to do this?" We figured it out. The persistence there, kept, but I was scared. I was really scared. And I probably spent the first 3 years in business just sweating those level of details, because again, like I said, there's so much you don't know. Payroll, taxes, insurance. When I first was getting this contract, I had to get a large, insurance policy. And again, I started calling insurance companies, and they said, "What does your company do?" And I said, "We provide intelligence, supports the government." Click, hello. And so no one wanted to insure us. And finally, I talked to someone. They said, "You're a consultant, right? Just say a consultant." I said, "Okay." And so I still couldn't get anybody to do it. I found the Florida Dental Association. They ended up giving me a policy because they dealt with offices with small numbers of employees, and they did it. So, again, this persistence in figuring things out. So the moral of the story is that being an entrepreneur means that you're going to sleep like a baby every night, curled in the fetal position, crying yourself to sleep.
But don't let that scare you.
Don't let that scare you. It's fun. It's worth it. It's worth it.
Speaking of challenges, one of the biggest challenges we've had to face in the last few years is COVID. So what impact did COVID have on your business, and are you still feeling any impacts from it? I'll start with you, Mr.
So
Celestan.
most of my employees, like I said, we're in the intelligence business. We provide support to a lot of government agencies, and I also have a large contract with the State Department, so I have employees in about 15 different countries. So when COVID hit, the State Department required us to bring all those employees back to the United States, and we were worried. We were very concerned because most of our employees have security clearances. We work on the government site, so there's no way we can do intelligence work from home. And so we had some late night meetings, and we thought we're going to have to probably furlough a lot of our workforce, which we were very worried about because they're very specialized, talent. We were fortunate that the government allowed us to do a workaround. And they didn't want to lose the talent, too. So they allowed us to bring our workforce home. We brought them back from overseas. We gave them basically unclassified projects that they could work on, and they'd allowed us to, keep the workforce in place. But we had some sleepless nights because for us, that was probably the greatest challenge we had ever faced, and it was unknown to us. We planned for contingencies like hurricanes. We have to have kidnap and ransom insurance because I've got folks in places like Democratic Republic of Congo. And so we have to have a plan in place. For example, if there's a major uprising there, to get in a rental car, go to the border, leave the car, cross the border, and we'll pick them up on the other side. So we had all sorts of contingency plans for that, but we had nothing for a worldwide pandemic. So it definitely made us think hard about different ways than, again, those black swan events when, you just have no way of planning for it.
Good. Mr. Divers.
We've had an interesting experience that we absolutely did not anticipate. When we first heard about COVID, we thought, this is going to be bad for local business. We've got some wonderful customers who aren't going to be able to pay their loans. We need to beef up the loss reserve and hunker down and live through it. Our deposits yesterday were 96% higher than they were at the end of 2019. The typical account in the bank is twice as large as it was almost 3 years ago. We expected credit losses, and instead of that, we've recovered more on charged-off loans than we've had to charge off in each of the last 3 years. So it's been the most positive experience for a bank, and we're not unique in this. It makes me wonder, where do we go from here? But I would tell you that as far as the bank is concerned, we're having the best year we ever had. Our earnings are just through the roof. We've got deposits that we really don't need and can't do a lot with. So we're not paying a very high rate on the deposits. And of course, each time Mr. Powell raises the rates on loans, we've got so many floating rate loans. This is going to be interesting to see how this plays out over the next year and a half.
Yeah, I don't think that when this started, you would have ever thought that you'd be sitting here now saying that our deposits are 96% higher than they were at the end of 2019. And that's why, it's part of the unknown, I guess.
Yep.
We need entrepreneurs to start businesses and start borrowing money. Just a side note, just saying. No pressure.
They've got the deposits. And before we go on, I just want to remind everybody, you can ask questions too, so make sure you tweet in your questions with the hashtag Sykes, HOF22. I don't have that written down, so I had to remember it. Okay, next question. And I'm starting with you, Mr. Divers, on this one. How has globalization affected your industry, and specifically, how has it affected your business?
Not at all.
Not at all?
No, it's been interesting. I would have said 15 years ago that we would have had a few worldwide banks. There were a number of European banks that made investments in this country, and for the most part, other than the Canadian banks, but they're sort of part of us, I think, most of the European banks that made big investments here have backed out. So banking has consolidated tremendously, but the banks that have consolidated are based in the United States, and there's very little competition from foreign banks.
Interesting to know. Mr. Celestan.
You know, it really doesn't affect me this because our clients primarily the federal government. So, I mean, even though we work globally, we're really more focused on that client. So we really don't have the challenges that a lot of other businesses have.
Okay. Question number 8, and this is for you, Mr. Celestan, first. What role do you think that diversity and inclusion play in making a business successful?
Well, I think it's huge, and we've talked about this. It's really interesting. We've had some interesting conversations on different boards I've been on, and it's probably not for the reasons I think that people would think maybe coming from me. I would tell people that it's very important from a business aspect because it colors all of the things, no pun intended, of how you look at how you do your business, the people you work with, the people who are your clients, the people out in the community. And you have to look at it as from a business standpoint. Diversity is great because there are so many ideas and cultures and ways that can improve your business. And when you have a group of people who look like you, think like you don't have the expansive ideas that you would need really to grow your business. And when you're exposed to other cultures, there's other things that, and I'll just tell this little story. So when I was in the military, one of the assignments I had, I got a chance to run, I was in charge of a United Nations mission in the Western Sahara Desert. Another great spot that the U.S. Army loves to send us to. And, but I had members of about 10 different countries who were under my, charge. And so we had these frequent sandstorms. It was pretty hazardous. We had minefields we had to deal with. And so we had one of our patrols was out, and we had an approaching sandstorm. We had lost radio contact. So being, as an American, I thought, great, okay, we're going to put together a patrol of a couple of vehicles. We're going to go out, and we're going to go find this group. And a number of the people in the camp were like, no, it's too risky. And at first I thought, you've got to be kidding me. We can't leave these people out there. And as I listened to them and I heard their point of view, I got it. It wasn't a matter of cowardice or, anything like that, but it was they evaluated risk totally differently than I did. And their thinking was, hey, why would we risk 15 or 20 people to possibly go after 2? We ended up going after it, and we did bring the people back. But that experience for that period of time, as I got to work with them, I got to see the world in a different light. And I've brought it back into my business now, too, because I'm more open now to understand that I don't have all the answers, and people from a different background can give me perspectives that I don't have that's helped me grow the business and helped me be a better person. So I would tell you that, don't look at it as something as a block that you have to check. Look at it as something that's going to help you be a better person, definitely help your business. And again, you have to step back and look at the world that you live in right now. It's very unlikely that you're going to do business with people who look just like you and come from your background. Probably not likely.
Mr. Divers.
I would echo Greg. Our experience has been that we want to hire people who have values that we share, but we hope that we'll have the opportunity to have people from all backgrounds, sexual preference, color, religion, because we have found that when people are working together with people who come from different backgrounds, it creates a more thoughtful, positive environment than if everybody there were Episcopalians like me. It's made the bank a better financial institution because we have people with various backgrounds who respect each other and appreciate each other and don't resent each other. They're glad they're there. So it's been a very much of a positive for us.
Good. And, I think that's one of the things I've always loved about the University of Tampa. We are fairly diverse. We have a fairly diverse student body. I think about 10% of our students, maybe more than that, are international students. And I've learned so much about the world just from actually talking to students. And so you don't want people who think the same way you do.
Exactly.
Because you're never going to come up with new ideas if you do.
But we have to draw the line at people from the Naval Academy. No on that. We draw the line there. I'm just kidding.
I'm going to stay out of that one. Next question, and I guess I'm going to you first, Mr. Divers, on this one. Looking back at the business opportunities you've had over the years, are there any you didn't take that you wish you had taken?
No. I thought about that question when I first saw it. I thought that's an easy answer for me.
No regrets.
I've just been a plotter and gone along. When a door closed, I went through another one, but no opportunities that I'm sorry I didn't take.
Good, good. Like I said, no regrets.
It's the opposite. I've actually got involved with things, software development, media support that were outside of my area of expertise. And being a true entrepreneur, I thought, how difficult can it be? I can figure this out. Some costly and expensive mistakes. I learned a lot. And so usually it's, they say the path not taken. Well, for me, I've taken those paths, and some of them I regret, but I've learned some good lessons. So no, there are probably none that I can't think of any opportunities that I didn't take, because I tried them all.
Good. And before I ask my last question, I just want to remind you one last time, hashtag Sykes, HOF22. If you do want to ask any questions, we'll be getting to that right after this last question. So the final question for you, Mr. Celestan. Okay. What advice do you have for anyone who wants to start a business?
I would tell you that take the path I did. Take many years, write a detailed business plan, go out, search advice from obviously I didn't do that. What I did was I had an idea, and I basically walked off the cliff. I would tell you, we have a term in the military we call, paralysis by analysis. If you have a passion for what you want to do and you think you can solve a problem, take care of people, do something, I would advise you to go out and do it, because the learning happens in that journey. We always get focused on, and I did this too, when I win, I get my first $1 million, I'm going to do X. I was so busy it didn't happen. When I hit 10 million or 20 million, I thought I was going to do all these great things, and I was so involved with the business, I never did that. And then I sat back one day and realized it was the journey. It was the learning process that what I enjoyed more of, most of all, the people I met, the things I learned along the way. So I would tell you, don't be afraid. If you have an idea or you want to go out there and start a business, go out there and do it. And again, don't be afraid to fail. You're going to make a lot of mistakes. Just remember, keep that eye on the goal, keep that passion, that hunger for what you want to do. You're going to be successful.
Good. Mr. Divers, what advice would you give anyone who wants to start a business?
I would say before you start, develop a vision for what you want to accomplish as well as you can. Develop some ideas as to how you can accomplish the vision. But be prepared. If you don't have the passion for running that business, you're not going to make it. You need the passion, you need to have the commitment to spend the hours that it takes. As Greg says, you're going to make some mistakes and you're going to fall, and you've got to have the strength and the courage to get up and go again. Mm-hmm. Starting and running a business is not as easy as it looks like when you see somebody who's successful on the golf course. It's a real challenge to put it all together, to get the right people. You've got to have a vision. You've got to be able to work. I sent Dr. Vaughn a letter the other day talking about vision and passion. I remember when he took his job as president of the University of Tampa, it had less than 2,000 students. The hotel building was in disrepair. Some independent properties were located around in what is now the campus. The school was losing money. And the rumor in town was the University of South Florida is going to take it over. Mm-hmm. Fast forward, look at the university today. Over 10,000 students operating in the black, a campus that's largely new and still growing, all because of the vision and leadership and sleepless nights and frustration that Dr. Vaughn has experienced. Now, he is a perfect example for what it takes to be successful in business. And if you don't think you're up to that, just enjoy getting a salary and working for somebody else.
Mm-hmm. And I can speak to that because Dr. Vaughn was my dean for my first couple of years here. If I had an 8 a.m. class, his car was here. If I had a class in the evening and I left, his car was here. And it does take a lot of work, and I can only imagine what it was like know what it was like during that time because I was an employee here, and those concerns about being taken over were real concerns.
I can only imagine the frustration, the sleepless nights, and that happens in every independent business.
Mm-hmm. Good. Well, those are all the questions I have. Now I'm looking forward to see what questions we have from the audience. Here they come.
Okay.
I'll read them. Okay, here we go. This is from Debbie Lundberg. Speakers, Jerry and Greg, thank you for speaking and sharing your passion today. If there's one thing you wish people would stop doing in order to get focused on their passion and taking action toward realizing goals, what is that something to change advice?
Well, I'll jump on this hand grenade, to use a military term. I go back to, the last comment I made, because I do see it when I talk to people. And again, you've heard two themes I talk about, fear of failure and a little bit of fear of the unknown. And, in the military, General Powell had a great comment about, you wish that when you make a decision, you're going to have 100% of the data that you need to make that decision. When in reality, the number is really closer maybe to 60, maybe 50 as an entrepreneur. And I would tell you the thing that I see when people, again, I just see them go in a circle. Well, I'm not sure, I'm not sure. And again, that's where it goes back to seek advice, find a mentor. Find the answers for yourself, but at some point in time, you've got to step off that sidewalk and you've got to go into the road. And that's the thing I've seen people more than anything else, they just get stuck. And I would tell you that you're really not going to learn. All of the planning that you do, we have a saying in the military, your plan doesn't survive first contact with the enemy, and that's true. We do planning in the military to help us think about the branches and sequels. What if? What if this happens? Then I'll do this. Maybe if this happens. And that's what your planning really is to help you do. But your learning really starts when you actually jump. So I would tell you the thing that I've seen people do is they just get stuck in a circle of planning and they can't get out of that cycle because they're afraid to make a mistake.
And I'd say stop thinking about yourself, putting yourself first. Yeah, think about the people who are going to help you achieve what you want to achieve.
Good answers. Next question from Jaden Hudson. I've started a business and we generate revenue. We're at the point in our business where we have created an LLC. This gives us protection and more opportunities. What's the best way to get a small business loan with low interest rates and maximize ROI? That's return on investment for those of you who don't know.
Come to the Bank of Tampa.
I was going to say that. I mean, that's an easy one.
That was a softball, wasn't it?
Thank you.
Jerry's talked about it too. When you do come to a bank, you've got to be able to discuss what your business is about. And again, and this is what I've learned from, watching Mr. Divers here, we sit in these meetings and I'm fascinated by it because as, I've been on the board for 10 years and some of these businesses have been in town for some time. And so, a packet will come before the loan committee and someone's asking for a loan and someone will say, well, the numbers just say this and maybe we shouldn't give them this loan. And Jerry will pause, and I always love this, and he'll say, let me tell you about, Jane or Sam who started this business. Let me tell you about their character, and let me tell you about what they want to accomplish with this business. And at the end of the meeting, we're all like, yeah, we're going to give money to this company because we understand this. So, a technical answer might be, I could tell you do this, this, or this, but I would tell you when you do go and talk to whoever your banking representative is, you have to be able to articulate what you want to accomplish and what you want to do and how you're going to get there. That's very important because really it's a matter of trust. When a bank is lending you money, they want to know that you're going to be able to accomplish what you're going to do. Again, I think the joke in the banking term is not the return on our money, it's the return of our money. So you want to get the money back. So again, you have to be able to articulate what you want to accomplish. And I don't want to take any words.
I would say too, put together, you have a vision for what you want to accomplish. You think you know how you want to do it. Put it in writing. Put a business plan together with a current financial statement and maybe financial statements for the business for the last couple of years, even if they show losses. But the business plan and the financial statements and you and the impression that you make when you talk to your lending officer would make a positive difference. It gives the lending officer a sense of who you are, to see in writing this is me, this is what I want to achieve, and this is how I'm going to do it.
Mm-hmm. The numbers are important, but the person is just as important, if not more important.
More important.
Mm-hmm. Good. Next question. By the way, I mentioned earlier that I don't like dealing with uncertainty. I'm looking forward to these questions that I didn't have a hand in writing. Luca Grosso, I run a virtual business. My employees have only met me through Zoom. How do I create a competitive and impactful team culture to inspire my team to reach our monthly and annual goals?
Wow, that's, we're wrestling with that too, because especially during COVID, I had a number of employees that I met for the first time and only knew them virtually. And it's tough. I'll tell you, it's very difficult because we're a culture-based business. Some of the things that I started doing to build a connection, and again, I thank my wife for this, is I started writing personal notes. I started building that connection because it was the only way of dealing. We did welcome letters, but I started then writing, hey, I saw something good. I wrote, and I learned, I had someone who had left the company, and I ran into him in Washington. They said, hey, I still have that card. I'm working for the government now, but I'll never forget that you took the time to write a card and just tell me that you saw something that I did. But it's difficult. This is a new environment that we're in, and we have a lot of people who work hybrid and remotely. And so you have to be very creative to build that culture. And I don't have all the answers, but that was the one thing that I was doing, was trying to establish a personal connection.
Our culture in the bank is so important in the way we conduct our business that I simply can't imagine how we could operate if our people didn't relate to each other, and you simply can't do it virtually. So I'm from an old school. I send everybody in the bank a birthday card. I send everybody in the bank an anniversary card with a little note thanking them for what they do. But that's from me. The culture is with each other. Mm-hmm. And I just don't see how you can do that virtually. Right. Somebody figures it out. Educate me.
It's a challenge. I think we have one more question. Boom. Nicholas, on the topic of diversity and inclusion, how do you empower associates to bring their authentic self to work, enabling them to create meaningful connections and help establish a culture of belonging? That's a really good question.
Yeah, it is a good question. Well, I'll again jump on this. It really starts from the top. The leaders have to establish that environment, that you feel welcome, that your ideas are welcome, that you don't judge people based on how they look or how they talk or where they come from. And it takes time to build it. It is a culture. You have to work on that. And organizations struggle with that, especially large organizations, because, again, you're in the people business. You're dealing with people. People come into an organization with their experiences, their ideas, their prejudices, their bias, and we all have them. But as a leader, to overcome that, you've got to work hard on it. And again, my military background helped me with that, because in the military, we don't get to choose the group of people we have. And we bring together a group of people from all backgrounds, and, inner cities, rural. I had draftees when I came in the military who had just hung around for a long period of time. And they all had experiences that they brought to the table, but you had to get them to work together, because at the end of the day, and this goes back to that vision and passion, if you're not working together, you're working against each other, and the organization starts to fray. So, again, when I talk about diversity and inclusion, it's not just a phrase. It's so important for the health of the organization, for people to feel wanted to be part of it and to feel that their ideas are heard. So I would say that if you're in a leadership position, you have to be working on that 24/7. And if you're part of it, you have to do your part to make sure that people understand that it's important.
I second Greg's motion. I would say they need to feel that they're being treated fairly, that they're respected and appreciated, and they're treated on an equal basis with others in the organization. And
it's important.
With what you've said, I will add, as you heard earlier, Greg was in the military and I was in the Navy. Most of you students won't appreciate me. I can tell you that my 4 years in the Navy changed the way I live my life. I am so much in favor of universal military training. I'll probably be stoned when I walk out the door, but it would be so good for you all to have 2 or 3 years of experience in the military and learn some self-discipline that you probably don't have, that I didn't have, and learn to work with other people, whether you liked it or not.
Exactly.
But he's a perfect example of what the military can do for somebody.
I only have one bias, and it's only one time of the year, and it's against people from the Naval Academy. Other than that, I am totally open to everything.
I think we have another question from Kevin. Thoughts on the barriers to entry for community banks today?
Ooh,
that's a good question.
That is a good question.
So what are your thoughts on the barriers to entry for a community bank nowadays?
Regulation. You cannot believe the degree of regulation that banks deal with. We had a board meeting yesterday. The board package was 758 pages. Over 500 pages were policies that the board had to become familiar with and approve that dealt with all kinds of extraneous stuff. It's done simply to satisfy the regulators, and the regulators have no choice because Congress has passed laws that tell them what they have to be responsible for. But you simply can't afford to do that. We spend more than $3 million a year in our bank complying with federal regulations. A small bank can't afford to do that.
Right.
And they have absolutely killed the opportunity for independent banks.
It's true.
That's sad to hear. Think we might have one more question? Oh, this is from someone familiar. What is the one thing you wish you knew about life when you were 21 years old and making your way in the world? I think that was a question to you directly, but
I know,
I'm not sure.
this is dangerous. You know, when your wife asks you a question, you better answer it carefully. I would say I was probably very nervous and anxious at that time, you know, getting out into the world, coming out of school. And I was, even though I preached this, you know, from experience of making mistakes, I would tell you this. I would tell you, and this is a story I told my daughter, not only take chances, but explore different things. Don't be afraid to try different things. And again, that has helped me become, I've been fortunate. So, you know, side note, I was a Russian foreign area officer, and I got a chance, the military sent me to graduate school. I studied Russian, and then I spent a lot of time in the former Soviet Union. As you can imagine, I didn't blend in. They kind of knew I wasn't a native speaker. But the fun part about that is learning about a different culture and how they saw the world. And it helped break down a lot of things in my life. I became less fearful as I got out there and I started seeing that the world there were a lot of things to learn. So as a 21-year-old, I think I would tell myself is, don't be so fearful. Go out there and just do it. You know, take some chances, try some different things. You know, I was so focused on the military, I wish I had studied art history or tried something different, and I probably would have been a little better person now.
Do you have anything to add to that?
That's a tough question.
It is a tough one.
You wanted to go to West Point.
Thinking about when I was 21, I had just graduated from college. I had been in the Naval Reserve 5 years. They had just changed the law that if you had been in the reserve for 5 years, you didn't have to go on active duty. I had no idea what I wanted to do. And so I signed up to go on active duty thinking sometime in the next 4 years I'll figure it out. But honestly, at 21, I think it's not unusual to just feel that you don't have a sense of direction, what you want to do in life or how you're going to get there. And it just takes some time.
Yeah, there's no arbitrary thing that says you've got to have everything figured out by the time you're 18 or 21. Different people figure it out at different paces. And I look back when I was 21, I wish someone had told me to buy anything that Warren Buffett invested in. I didn't. I think we might have another question. From Matt Favia. I've been working on my business for about 2 years now. The workload feels impossible and I lack mentorship. What is the best way to find a mentor and to create a team to pursue my entrepreneurial passions?
You're the best person to answer that
Well,
question.
yeah, the first thing I'd say is go to the Entrepreneurship Center. Go to the 8th floor of the ICB building, the Loth Entrepreneurship Center. You will find more mentors there than you can deal with. But the great thing about those mentors is that they are free to you right now. Once you graduate, they'll charge people $300, $400 an hour. So take advantage of it while you can.
Actually, that's a good thing. You know, the workload feels impossible. That's about right. That's about how it should feel. That means you're, you know, if it was too easy, then you're doing something wrong. That's pretty much what it is to be an entrepreneur. It's going to be a heavy workload, but don't stop. Please don't stop.
If it were easy, everybody would do it.
Absolutely.
I think we might even have one more question. I love this. Jerry O'Connor, have you ever felt that the passion in your business is fading? If so, how did you regain that motivation? Is it just sheer willpower? Interesting question.
Yes. I've had times when, you know, it just feels like you're grinding. You're dealing with problems. And again, you know, dealing with a business is problem solving. You know, dealing with people and problem solving every day. And there have been times you get a little bit down because you're dealing with problems and you feel that the weight of the world is on your shoulder. And the thing for me that has helped me is that I take the time and somebody I'm working with, I get this, you know, burst of energy because they tell me something, you know, that we've done well, or we're solving a problem, or I get a chance to meet other people in the business community. And this is a thing you learn too, and this is why it's good to form those networks, is you find out that other business owners are dealing with the same problems. I have a network of other business owners around here, and we call ourselves competimates, because we compete sometimes, but we'll pick up the phone and call each other and say, hey, I just got this, you know, this document. What do I do with this? And we'll share information. And I love the fact that we're able to, you know, talk to each other and rely on each other to kind of build each other up. So there are going to be some times when you feel that the weight of the world is on your shoulder, but that's totally natural because it's not a straight line. You know, I think the danger of some of the shows that you see on TV right now is it looks like people come out of the womb and they're successful. And they really should have a show for people who have just been grinding and they've had 3 or 4 failures, because if you read a lot of the books from entrepreneurs, you do learn that a lot of them, it was not a straight path. And they had to go through a lot of adversity, overcome a lot of adversity to be successful. So that's really kind of preparing you too for it. So just, again, I would just tell you, persistence, stay with it, you're going to be fine.
And I would echo what Greg said. I think we all go through that. I would say, I was going to say earlier, we all need to get our paycheck every 2 weeks, so even if you're not as passionate as you were, you need to keep on going, but there's much more to it than that. As Greg says, try to figure out what it is that's causing, what in you is causing that problem, what can you do, but know too, everybody goes through that periodically.
It's going to happen no matter what line of work you're in.
And we just have to get up and keep on going.
I think we have time for one more question. Oh, from one of my colleagues here. What type of new employees are you looking for in your company? You're not looking to leave, are you? Okay. How many seniors in the audience wonder how best they can stand out when interviewing? That's a really good question.
That is a really good question. Can I take this for sure? Because we're always interviewing people all of the time. The people that I enjoy best are the people who take the time to learn a little bit about my business. The worst interview is someone who comes to an interview for the company, whatever the position is, and we ask them, well, what do you know about our company? Nothing. Well, that really tells me there's no passion or they've done no preparation. And then a lot of the questions that we ask people are, again, kind of going back to adversity, tell me about how would you solve this problem? And I just really want to see how they react to it. I want people who are willing to learn. The people who have been the best employees have not been the people who came and knew everything, because I'm always suspicious if someone tells me that they know everything, because that's impossible. I want someone who's coachable, who's willing to learn, who's willing to help the organization. They want to be part of it. So I would tell you, if you were interviewing with me, or I think pretty much I could speak for a lot of companies in the area, take some time to learn about the company, and then be willing to talk about what you can do to help that company achieve their goal. Early on when I started my company, I was pitching, trying to get these contracts. I remember this guy, he looked at me, and he threw my little fact sheet back, and he said, great, but these are the things that keep me up at night, and everything you're telling me, none of these things, hits the goal. And I sat back and I went, that's right, I was thinking about me. I didn't think about this person. So then I started cocking my speech and said, hey, you had these issues. I can help you with these issues. I can help solve those problems. Now they were interested. So I would give you that little bit of piece of advice. And again, you're here, so obviously you're motivated, you want to have a career. The fact that you're sitting through this right now to listen to a couple of old guys, maybe not Jerry, but me, means that you already have a passion for what you want to do. So just capitalize on that. You're going to be successful, but talk about yourself, and it's hard to do that, but talk about your passion for what you can bring to that company.
Mr. Divers, do you have anything to add to that?
Not much to add other than the fact that do ask for a personal interview. Don't just drop off your resume.
Yeah.
B, dress for it when you go. So many people who come to interview for a job at the bank look like they're going out to do yard work. And C, indicate you're willing to start at the bottom and prove yourself as you move up. If you've done some civic work, particularly in a bank, that makes a difference because it shows more of your character. But your grades are important. Honestly, the way you look and speak are important. But your willingness to start at the bottom, work your way up, usually rings the bell with whoever you're talking with.
So true. Well, I want to thank everybody who asked questions. I want to thank all of you who attended tonight. And of course, I want to thank both of you. But before we finish, we do have a special presentation from Dean Gennadian.
Thank you both. We've learned a lot from tonight's presentation. I want to thank Jerry Divers, Gregory Celestan, and Dr. Britt Shirley for their insights and their expertise. And also, I want to thank Dominique Walker, who has helped me in arranging everything. Thank you, Dominique. On behalf of the University and Sykes College of Business, I'm privileged to present Mr. Divers and Mr. Celestan a memento of this great evening at the University of Tampa. Jerry?
Oh, wow.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. It's impressive. Thank you. Do I get to thank the Academy? Wow. Very nice.
Good night, everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight. We look forward to seeing you at our next Sykes Hall of Fame presentation.